food presentation on japonica rice, and I tried it in a chicken katsu curry. I guess I'll start with where the rice itself comes from. It is a shorter type of rice from Japan. It's been cultivated for a couple of thousand years, maybe a little bit over, around 2,500 or 2,500 years. And some interesting and significant historical facts about it are that it was used as currency and a measurement of wealth and status, as individuals would pay their feudal lords in koku, which was a unit representing how much rice could feed one person for a year. And I linked here a source where it denoted some well, you can't read the Japanese, but it denoted payments referring to koku, which was how much an individual could eat in one year. Another thing to note, I guess, in its historical impact is how it has affected Japan's landscape in terms of the paddies and rice fields that exist today. Obviously, it's a very cultivated crop, but more specifically, it is evident in its effect on the landscape itself and how individuals within and outside of Japan perceive farming and agriculture in the nation. Some nutritional facts about it are it's like most rices, it's mostly carbohydrates with small amount of protein, very low in fats, and this is part of why it is able to pair well with many dishes, and that is a foundation to many meals based off its texture and the energy it provides. This is just because of the way that crop has been cultivated in our palates. Rice serves as a basis because of obviously all of its nutritional beneficial factors, like its low fat percentage and its high carbohydrate percentage. Next thing to touch on is, I guess it kind of pivots into this, is its relationship with human disease. Because rice is naturally gluten-free, it's very compatible with many sensitive diets, especially gluten-free ones and celiac. Japonica rice also helps reduce the risk of heart disease and high blood pressure. Many traditional Japanese diets have been linked to lower rates of obesity, cardiovascular diseases, and some cancers as a result of the grains that they incorporate within, like the japonica rice and other rice and grain varieties. When considering the quality of the rice, like most other rices, they should be uniform in size, shape, and color. Japonica rice itself is a lot shorter than other rices. It appears a lot more white, a lot whiter in person. Or I guess I should say it's just more noticeable in the sense. Obviously, once it's seasoned and whatnot, that difference is harder to notice and conceptualize, but before cooking, before cleaning, it is obvious and apparent how strong the starch component is in terms of making the rice white. This actually leads into another part in detecting quality. Chalky parts mean loosely packed starch, which is less desirable as a result of how it affects the texture when you are after you have cooked it. Another thing to note is the cracking of the rice. If there is any cracking, it is seen as inadequate or less appealing. The rice is typically planted in late spring and harvested in late summer to early autumn, depending on the region. It is very important. Actually, on this exact same site, I don't have it listed here, but it was, I think, a 17% decrease in yield of adequate rice as a result of improper planning in terms of planting dates and transplanting times. If you are planting earlier, you can avoid stressful conditions and critical growth phases, which aids in the yield. It is also regularly tended to throughout its growing cycle. One of the most important parts about rice is in maximizing the yield. You want to ensure healthy development. So water management is very important, and proper feeding, weeding, and monitoring is essential to maximizing that yield. How it ties into the chicken katsu curry is it serves as the texture base essentially for the curry itself. I guess some historical notes on chicken katsu curry and its culture. Katsu actually comes from the English word cutlet and was introduced to Japan in the mid 1800s when Japan, I think it might have been a little bit earlier actually. I think they just generalized it with the Meiji era. I digress. It is now a mainstream comfort food in Japan, actually a kind of a household dish, if you will. But it's interesting that one should consider this a household dish, considering that it was adopted from Western culture and the incorporation of many different cultures into one. Because the Japanese adopted it from the British, who had already had been introduced to curries, the Japanese put their own spin on it and transformed it into, I wouldn't say, perhaps you could comment and say it's a multicultural type of dish, and that it probably would not exist without the two before it combining. But I thought it was significant as it shows Japan's unique cultural identity, in that they are able to modernize and perhaps transform innovation or an invention, but in this case a dish, and put their own spin and maintain the tradition in Japanese food, in that we have japonica rice, and while also incorporating their own type of curry, while not drawing too heavily from the spices of perhaps an Indian curry or a British dish as well. They're able to put their own spin and transform it to something new, which serves as a blend of cultures while also paying respect to tradition and history, and that it is aware of its background. In terms of the preparation for the dish, it was you cut kind of thinner slices of chicken and then coat with flour and breadcrumbs, and then you deep fry. The curry sauce is pretty simple. It's onions, garlic, ginger. You mix it with a broth, and then you allow it to cook until thick. Rice, you rinse it pure of its chalky outside, and cook until soft, kind of fluffy on the outside. It's very sticky kind of rice. Obviously, all rice, I guess, kind of has that same vibe, but this, I think it's more in that because the grains are smaller themselves, that the rice appears that it's more sticky than it is. And then you assemble it. You put the chicken and the rice and pour the sauce over. My experience of the dish was I really enjoyed it. I think I really enjoy curries and the mixing of broths and whatnot with rice. I love combining grains with as a texture basis for a dish. Obviously protein, so I can enjoy the chicken. I think the chicken itself is the saltiest part of the dish in terms of nutritional value. It is probably the unhealthiest part. Perhaps the curry as well might be a little fattening, but I think the seasoning of the rice pairs very well with the dish. It's not too salty, but you can tell when you try with the chicken. You can taste the fats, and there's a little more unhealthiness to the dish as a result of that. But I think when considering the nutritional benefits of the Japonica rice and the incorporation of your vegetables like carrots, onions, etc. Uh, while I would not say that this is the healthiest dish, it's definitely very enjoyable. I really do enjoy, I really did enjoy the smaller grains of rice, and that, you kind of, I wouldn't, it wasn't very mushy after a couple of bites. You really got to enjoy the dish while, uh, getting to experience it. Um, so just to wrap up with a little reflection, uh, I want to go back to my point earlier and touching on this dish's ability to incorporate multiple cultures and then serve as its own traditional staple of, a Japanese household dish. Um, I can't say much in terms of, I wouldn't say that I exactly transform any dishes in this way and that I'm bringing one culture from another and transfusing it into this other thing. But I can also see that I wanted to say I can see the value in adopting other cultures to allow oneself to experience more while being aware of, the bases and background and traditions that we come from. In this dish, more specifically, I wanted to reference how we use the rice as a backbone, but we also throw our own kind of hibachi-esque um, spin on the cutlet, which comes from the English. Uh, in that this is the chicken we use, and then we incorporate some Indian background in terms of using curry. And I guess what this makes me think about in my own life and reflecting on it is my mother is from a different country, and my father is from the Western United States. Now, while we have our own, similarities in our American upbringing, there's a clear difference between the South and the Northwestern United States. But even then, um, my mom makes an Algerian couscous, and while she loves to incorporate chickpeas, when I eat it, I'm not a big fan of chickpeas, as I really enjoy, putting potatoes and squash, among other vegetables, within it. And while she loves to include merguez, it's not as readily available, so I have to make do in my own way with other proteins. Um, Rarely do I include chicken, mainly lamb, but chicken can serve as an example substitute, but I've come to enjoy it as my own spin just as much. But I understand, that this is a very Americanized version of the dish, but I understand where it's coming from, the background, and I'm able to respect the significance of, that culture tradition and understanding where it's coming from while enjoying my own personalized spin on it. And I have listed more than a couple sources here. I've gone ahead and cited them in MLA uh, alphabetically. Okay. So, yeah, thank you.